The grand hall of the Galactic Empire gleamed with cold light. Hundreds of officers and soldiers stood in perfect rows, their uniforms sharp, their faces expressionless. At the front of the hall, on a raised platform, stood the Empire's supreme commander, a man whose reputation for cruelty was known across galaxies. His voice echoed through the hall, loud and commanding, as if the walls themselves feared him. Among the officers stood General Kayla. Her armor was polished, her stance proud, but her heart beat with a mix of anger and determination. Today, she was not here to celebrate victories or honor the Empire. Today, she was here to be humiliated. And everyone would watch. The commander's eyes landed on her. "General Kayla," he said, his voice dripping with mock respect. "Your performance has been disappointing. Your decisions cost us valuable ships, resources, and time. You will be reminded of your place." Kala's jaw tightened. She had fought countless battles, led her troops with courage, and won victories the Empire would not even admit publicly. Yet here she was, standing in front of the entire military, being insulted and belittled. Without warning, the commander reached out and slapped her across the face. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Gasps filled the hall. Soldiers turned their eyes to Kayla, some shocked, some unsure of what to do. Kala's hand went to her cheek. Pain burned, but more than that, a fire ignited in her heart. This was not just a slap, it was a challenge. A test of her patience, her strength, and her honor. She looked at the commander. His eyes glinted with arrogance, thinking he had broken her. But he did not know Kayla. He did not know the storm that could awaken in a woman who had been pushed too far. Kala's mind raced. Every moment she spent standing there, pretending to be subservient, was a moment lost. She could not act now, not in front of everyone, but she would plan. She would strike. And when she did, the Empire would regret underestimating her. Around her, the soldiers whispered. Some admired her courage, some feared what might come next. Kayla could sense their thoughts, their unspoken hopes. Perhaps some of them, too, wanted change. Perhaps some of them had already begun to doubt the Empire's leader's dot as the ceremony continued. Kayla forced a calm expression, hiding the storm inside her. She saluted the commander, her eyes sharp, unwavering. The commander smirked, believing he had won. But Kayla had already begun plotting. Every insult, every humiliation, every cruel word he had spoken would fuel her dot after the ceremony. Kayla returned to her quarters. Alone, she allowed herself a small moment to release her anger. She examined her strategy boards, her maps of the galaxy, her notes on enemy movements. Each piece of information was a weapon, each ally a potential force. She began to think not just of revenge, but of justice for herself, for her troops, for all those the Empire had oppressed. Dot in a quiet corner of her room, she activated a small communicator. A soft voice answered. It was her most trusted lieutenant, a young officer who had stood by her side through countless battles. They humiliated you today, the lieutenant said quietly. Everyone saw it. Everyone feels it. Kayla nodded, though her face remained calm. Yes, she said, and they will remember it. But not today. Today we plan. Tomorrow we begin. Even in the shadows, Kayla's resolve was clear. She was not just a soldier. She was a leader, a fighter, and soon she would be a force the Empire could not ignore. Before she ended the communication, she looked at the stars outside her window. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown dangers, but also full of possibilities. She whispered to herself, "They think they can break me. They are wrong. I will rise." And as she sat there, plotting her first move, Kayla knew one thing for certain. The Empire had underestimated her. And underestimating Kayla was the gravest mistake they could ever make. if you want to follow Kayla's journey and see how she challenges the entire Galactic Empire, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Every story we share is filled with suspense, battles, and heroes who refuse to back down. The first spark of rebellion had been lit, and soon the galaxy would see the storm she would bring. The cold stars outside Kayla's quarters seemed to shimmer with possibility. She traced the paths of distant fleets on her holographic map, each dot a potential ally, each line a danger. The Empire believed it controlled everything, but Kayla knew that even the largest empires had cracks hidden, weaknesses that could change the balance of power. Her mind replayed the public humiliation again. The commander's hand on her cheek, the laughter that followed in the silent hall, the fearful glances of soldiers. It all fueled a fire within her. But Kayla was not reckless. She knew that a single act of vengeance without preparation would only end in death. Strategy was her weapon, patience her shield. Kayla's communicator buzzed softly. Her lieutenant's voice sounded tense. "General, there's been unusual activity near Sector 9. Small ships moving at high speed, avoiding patrols. We've traced some signals. Alien in origin." Kayla's eyes narrowed. "Aliens? Are they hostile?" They are not like anything we've encountered. Their ships move silently, almost like shadows. I think they might be willing to help us if we can prove we are not enemies." A spark of hope lit Kayla's eyes. If she could gain allies outside the Empire, her chances of survival and revenge would grow exponentially. She tapped into her secret database, recalling every encounter with alien species, every negotiation that had succeeded or failed. Trust was scarce in the galaxy, but necessity often forced it. The next morning, Kayla left her quarters under the guise of routine inspection. Her soldiers followed obediently, unaware of the plan she was forming. Every step she took was careful, measured. Every glance she gave the Emperor's patrols was calm. Hiding the storm inside her dot, she reached the docking bay, where a small fleet waited. Among them were ships with designs unlike any Imperial craft. Sleek, silent, almost organic in shape. Kayla's pulse quickened. The aliens had arrived, curious, cautious, and potentially dangerous allies. A figure emerged from the lead ship. Tall, slender, with skin shimmering like liquid metal. Their eyes, large and reflective, seemed to see into Kayla's mind. "You are Kayla," the figure said, their voice melodic, yet carrying authority. "We have heard of your defiance. You oppose the Empire, yet you do not strike blindly. We may assist you, if your cause is worthy." Kayla stepped forward, her voice steady. "I do not fight for power or glory. I fight for justice for those who cannot defend themselves. If your people value life and freedom, then our goals align." The alien tilted its head, studying her. After a tense moment, it nodded. "Then we will watch, and when the time is right, we will act. But beware, human. The Empire sees betrayal as the gravest sin." Kayla smiled faintly, a mix of relief and determination. She now had allies, but trust would be tested, and betrayal could come from anywhere, even those closest to her. Back in her quarters, Kayla began planning the first phase of her rebellion. She studied the Empire's routines, the patrol schedules, the weak points in security, and the political tensions between rival factions. Each detail was a tool, each observation a stepping stone toward victory. She also considered her soldiers. Many had been loyal to her for years, yet fear still ruled them. She needed a spark to ignite courage. She called a secret meeting in a hidden chamber beneath the base. Only her most trusted officers were allowed. "Listen carefully," she said, her voice low but commanding. "The Empire thinks it controls everything, but it cannot see the truth. Every patrol, every command, every rule has a weakness. We will strike when they least expect it. Not for revenge alone, but for freedom, for honor. Are you with me?" Her officers nodded, some trembling, some fierce, all committed. In their eyes, Kayla saw hope, fear, and the promise of change. The first mission would be small, a test of skill and loyalty, but it would send a message. The Empire would begin to notice cracks. And cracks, if exploited carefully, could shatter even the strongest walls. That night, Kayla stood by the viewport, looking out at the galaxy. Her thoughts wandered to the commander, the man who had dared to humiliate her. One day soon, he would understand what it meant to underestimate Kayla. But for now, patience was her ally. She had ignited the spark of rebellion. Soon, it would grow into a flame no force could extinguish. And in the shadows, the alien ships waited silently, ready to act when Kayla gave the signal. The first strike was coming, and with it, the beginning of the Empire's reckoning. The galaxy had begun to whisper Kayla's name. A general humiliated once, now rising in defiance. And those whispers would grow louder, carrying hope, fear, and the promise of change. The galaxy was quiet that night, but Kayla knew it was a dangerous calm. Every shadow in the docking bay, every hum of a starship engine, reminded her that the Empire's eyes were everywhere. Yet this was the moment to act. The first strike had to be precise a warning that the woman they humiliated could not be ignored. Kayla gathered her most loyal officers in the hidden chamber beneath the base. The room was dim, lit only by flickering holographic maps of the surrounding sectors. Alien allies hovered nearby, silent and watchful. Kala's voice was calm, measured, but carried authority. "Our target is a supply station in Sector 12, she began. "It's lightly guarded, but heavily relied upon. If we strike there, it will show the Empire that we are not powerless. We take what we need, leave no unnecessary damage, and return without being caught. Precision is everything. Hesitation will mean failure." Her officers nodded, their faces tense but determined. Kala's hand hovered over the command panel. A small green light blinked, signaling readiness. The alien ships responded with a silent shimmer, their presence almost invisible to the human eye. As the fleet slipped into hyperspace, Kala's mind raced through every possibility. Patrols could appear, sensors could detect them, traitors could betray the plan. One mistake would cost lives and possibly reveal her rebellion before it had truly begun. When they emerged from hyperspace, Sector 12 stretched before them, a cluster of massive domes connected by metallic walkways, surrounded by the silent hum of defensive turrets. Kayla's ships glided through the darkness, shadows among shadows, until they reached the station's perimeter. "Remember," Kayla whispered, "speed, precision, and silence. Hit, strike, and disappear." The strike team descended in small pods, each carrying explosives designed to disable infrastructure without unnecessary casualties. Kayla led the central pod, her heart steady, her mind focused. She moved like a shadow, every step calculated. Inside the station, alarms suddenly blared. One of the guards had spotted a shadow, a movement too subtle to be unnoticed. Kala's team reacted instantly, neutralizing the threat without killing. The operation was surgical, silent, but the tension was palpable. Every second felt like an eternity. Kayla planted the explosives on the main power conduits. Her hands were steady despite the adrenaline. "This will send a message," she said quietly. "The Empire cannot control everything." The countdown began. Outside, the alien ships positioned themselves to shield the team, their sleek forms reflecting the station's artificial lights. Every sensor, every radar pulse had to be avoided. The Empire could arrive at any moment. 3, 2, 1. The explosion was precise, contained, yet devastating. Lights flickered and panels sparked. The station's operations were crippled, supply lines disrupted. And the message was clear. Kayla had acted, and she would not be silenced. As the team extracted, alarms echoed throughout the sector. Empire patrols scrambled, but Kayla's forces vanished into the void, leaving chaos behind. The station was in ruins, yet no lives were lost. Her strategy had worked perfectly. Back on the hidden base, Kayla debriefed her officers. Faces were pale, but eyes shone with exhilaration. Even the alien allies nodded in approval. "You did well," Kayla said, her voice firm but proud. "This was only the beginning. The Empire believes we are weak. They will soon learn how dangerous we can be." Yet even in victory, Kayla felt the weight of what was coming. The Empire would retaliate, and when they did, it would not be small. She needed to prepare, to strengthen her forces, and to ensure loyalty. One misstep, one betrayal, could undo everything. As she looked at the stars, Kayla allowed herself a rare smile. The spark of rebellion had become a flame. The galaxy had begun to whisper her name. Some whispered fear, some whispered hope, but all would remember that the woman humiliated once had returned with power and precision. The first strike was over, but the war had just begun. And Kayla knew that in the shadows of the galaxy, plans were forming, plans that could either destroy her or make her unstoppable. The Empire would not forgive this, and Kayla would make sure they would never forget it. The victory in Sector 12 had shaken the Empire, but Kayla knew this was only the beginning. Triumph was sweet, yet dangerous. Every success brought attention, and attention could be deadly. She had to act carefully. In the dim light of her hidden chamber, Kayla reviewed every detail of the strike. Her officers huddled around the holographic map, their faces tense. The alien allies hovered silently, their reflective eyes scanning the data streams. Kayla's mind was sharp, calculating every possibility. "Sector 15 is next," she said. "It houses a communications relay. If we disable it, the Empire's coordination will falter. But we must be careful. There are spies everywhere." Her lieutenant, the young officer who had been with her since the early campaigns, frowned. "General, there's something you should know. Some of our soldiers, someone we trusted, may have been feeding information to the Empire." Kayla's eyes narrowed. Betrayal. It was a risk she had always known existed, but now it was real. The first strike may have inspired courage, but it also sparked fear, envy, and ambition in equal measure. "Who?" she demanded, her voice calm but icy. "We don't know yet," the lieutenant admitted. "But signs point to someone in your inner circle. Orders have been intercepted, supplies moved unexpectedly. Someone is undermining us." Kayla's mind raced. Every ally she had, every soldier she trusted, was under suspicion. Yet she could not act rashly. A false accusation could destroy morale. She would need proof, and she would need to catch the traitor in the act. The next day, Kayla and a small strike team moved toward Sector 15. Their ships glided silently through the void, alien allies alongside them. Every sensor, every patrol drone could reveal their presence. Kayla's heart remained steady, but her senses were sharp. As they approached the relay station, Kayla's lieutenant whispered, "Something's wrong. The patrols. They're expecting us. Someone tipped them off." Kayla's eyes burned with controlled anger. "Then we adapt. That's why we always have a contingency." The team split into two groups. Kayla led the main strike pod, while the others created a diversion. Explosions lit the darkness as the decoy ships attacked minor turrets, drawing attention away from the real mission. The relay station, though guarded, was now vulnerable. Inside, Kayla's team moved like shadows, disabling security systems and planting explosives. Every step was calculated, precise. But as they reached the central control hub, a figure appeared, a soldier from Kayla's own ranks, holding a datapad. His eyes were wide, panic and guilt mixing in a dangerous way. "Kayla?" he stammered. I didn't mean." Kala's hand rested on her weapon, but she did not fire. Her eyes studied him, reading fear and hesitation. "You betrayed us," she said softly, almost disappointed. "But you can still make the right choice. Help me complete this mission, and you may survive." The soldier nodded, trembling. He activated the hub systems under Keela's instructions, correcting the mistakes he had caused. The team planted the final explosives, and they left the station just as alarms blared. Outside, the diversion ships drew Imperial reinforcements away. The explosion rocked the relay station, disabling communications across the sector. The Empire's command scrambled, confused and enraged. Back on the hidden base, Kyla confronted the traitor. "Loyalty is not optional," she said. "It is earned. You endangered lives for fear or greed. That cannot be tolerated." The soldier hung his head. Kayla spared his life this time, but the warning was clear. Betrayal would not go unpunished again. Even among her allies, Kyla sensed tension. The galaxy was vast, and trust was fragile. Yet she had proven something crucial. Strategy, precision, and courage could overcome fear and treachery. That night, Kayla stood by the viewport, looking at the stars. Her victories were small, but they were meaningful. The Empire had underestimated her, and now cracks were appearing not just in their defenses, but within their ranks. The alien allies watched silently, their presence both comforting and unsettling. They were powerful, but their loyalty depended on Kala's wisdom and honor. One wrong step, one misjudgment, and everything could crumble. Hila's thoughts returned to the commander, the man who had humiliated her in front of everyone. One day soon, she would face him again. And when that moment came, it would not be in a public ceremony, but on a battlefield of her choosing. Her rebellion was no longer just a spark, it was a growing flame. And with each ally gained, each betrayal exposed, each mission executed with precision, the Empire's foundations shook. Kayla knew the path ahead would be filled with danger, betrayal, and impossible choices. But she also knew this. The galaxy needed hope, and she would be the one to give it. The whispers of her name grew louder across the sectors. Kyla, the general once humiliated, now a symbol of defiance, strategy, and unstoppable courage. And the Empire had only begun to feel the storm she was bringing. The Empire did not forgive. They never forgave. Word of Kayla's strikes in Sectors 12 and 15 spread like wildfire through the Empire's command. Reports of destroyed supply stations, crippled communications, and mysterious alien allies reached the Supreme Commander. His fury burned hotter than the stars. "Send the fleet," he ordered, voice cold and unforgiving. "Hunt her down. Leave nothing behind. Make her regret ever defying us." Kayla sensed the shift immediately. Scouts reported multiple Imperial fleets moving at impossible speeds toward her hidden base. The first strike had been small, but now the Empire struck with full force. Inside her command chamber, Kyla studied the incoming ships on the holographic map. The numbers were overwhelming hundreds of warships, bristling with weapons, shields pulsing ominously. Her small fleet and alien allies could not win in a direct battle. They had to be clever. "Evacuation routes ready?" she asked. Her lieutenant nodded, sweat on his forehead. "Shields at maximum, escape pods armed, and stealth cloaks active," he replied. Kala's mind raced. A direct confrontation would be suicide. Instead, they would use deception, traps, and speed to survive. The Empire would come expecting a fight. They would be disappointed. The first wave of Imperial fighters attacked just as the sun rose over the planet below. Explosions lit the darkness. Kala's ships darted between debris, using asteroid fields and debris clouds for cover. Alien allies fired strange energy weapons, tearing holes in the enemy lines. leaving streaks of light in the void. "Keep moving," Kayla shouted. "Do not engage directly. Hit and fade." Her fleet executed perfect maneuvers, striking vulnerable points in the Empire's formation. Explosions rocked enemy ships, but the numbers were staggering. Every success was met with 2 more waves. Kayla's heart pounded, yet her mind remained sharp. Panic was the enemy. Precision was survival. During the chaos, Kayla received a message from one of her scouts. "General, civilians on the nearby colony are being used as shields. The Empire has no honor. They threaten innocent lives." Kayla clenched her fists. Every choice now carried moral weight. Engage fully and risk civilian lives, or hold back and allow the Empire to continue their cruelty. Her mind raced through options. "We cannot allow this," she said. "Prepare targeted strikes. Only disable the Empire's weapons, nothing else. Protect the innocents." The fleet moved with unprecedented coordination. Kayla's orders were clear, precise. Every ship, every officer knew the priority. Neutralize the threat, minimize collateral damage, survive. Alien ships worked in perfect sync, using stealth maneuvers and energy shields to protect escape routes. The Empire's response was brutal. Capital ships fired massive beams, tearing apart asteroid fields, trying to force Kayla's fleet into open space. Explosions shook the planet below. Kayla gritted her teeth as debris rattled her ship. In the chaos, one of her most trusted officers hesitated, caught between fear and duty. Kayla's voice cut through the comms like steel. "Now is not the time for doubt. Follow the plan. We survive as one, or we die as one." The officer's hands shook, then steadied. The fleet pressed on, striking with precision. Slowly, the tide began to shift, not by brute force, but by intelligence, strategy, and unwavering courage. Hours passed like minutes. The Empire had lost more than Kayla's team had, but the danger was far from over. Every victory was temporary. Every step forward carried risk. Kayla knew they could not afford another mistake. Finally, the last wave of Imperial fighters retreated temporarily. Kayla's fleet was battered, some ships destroyed, but the core survived. The planet below was scarred by debris and fires, but the civilians were safe. Kayla sank into her chair, exhausted but focused. She looked at the stars and realized something vital. The Empire would escalate. They would come harder, faster, and with even more firepower. But Kayla had learned something in this battle strategy, and courage could overcome raw strength. Her lieutenant approached, bowing slightly. "General, the fleet is safe, but morale is shaken. They look to you for hope." Kayla nodded. "Then we give them hope. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Today. Every mission, every action, every choice, it must show them we are not weak. The Empire believes they are untouchable. Let's prove them wrong." In the quiet that followed, Kayla allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. The Empire had shown its power, but they had also revealed cracks over confidence, cruelty, and arrogance. Kayla understood now that winning this war would not be about ships and weapons alone. It would be about inspiring others, making allies, and turning fear into courage. The first major battle against the Empire had been won, but the war was far from over. And Kayla knew that when the Empire returned, and it would return, they would bring everything they had. The stakes were higher than ever. The galaxy was beginning to whisper again. Not just her name, but her legend. The general who had been humiliated once, now a leader of rebellion and hope, capable of standing against the might of the entire Galactic Empire. And the Empire had only begun to realize what they had awakened. The galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Kayla's fleet had survived the Empire's massive retaliation, but the threat was far from over. Intelligence reports confirmed the Empire's supreme commander was personally leading a strike fleet toward her base. This was no ordinary battle. This was personal. Kayla stood on the command deck, eyes fixed on the approaching ships. Her jaw was set, her mind sharp. Every decision now would have consequences not just for her fleet, but for the entire rebellion she had started. "General," her lieutenant said, tension clear in his voice. The commander himself. "He's coming in a flagship. One ship, heavily armed, faster than anything we've seen." Kala's eyes narrowed. The man who had humiliated her in front of the entire military, who had slapped her for all to see, was coming to face her. This was the moment she had been preparing for. "Prepare the strike team," Kayla said, her voice steady. "We face him directly. This ends today, or it ends us." Her officers exchanged glances. Some were terrified, some resolute. Kayla saw fear, but she also saw courage, the courage she had inspired. She turned to her alien allies, who shimmered with silent readiness. The flagship emerged from hyperspace like a predator descending upon its prey. Its massive hull glinted in the starlight, weapons bristling, shields pulsing. Kala's fleet spread in a tight formation, ready to defend and strike. "Remember," she said, addressing her team, "he is powerful, but not infallible. Watch his patterns, exploit weaknesses, and protect each other. And stay alive." The first salvo hit. Energy beams lanced across space, striking asteroids, debris, and some of Kala's smaller ships. Explosions lit the darkness. The battle had begun. Kala's fleet maneuvered with precision, dodging massive energy blasts and retaliating in kind. Her alien allies moved in perfect sync, cutting through Imperial lines and creating openings for targeted strikes. Finally, Kayla reached the commander's flagship. She docked her ship using stealth maneuvers, sneaking past outer defenses. Only a small team of elite soldiers accompanied her. Inside, the corridors were cold, metallic, and heavily guarded. Every step was measured, every corner a potential trap dot, and then she saw him. The Supreme Commander stood at the end of the hall, towering, clad in dark armor. His face was as cruel as she remembered, but now there was surprise in his eyes. He had underestimated her. "Kyla," he sneered, voice echoing through the chamber. "You dare enter my ship? After everything I've done to humiliate you?" Kala's hands rested on her weapon, her eyes steady. "I came to finish what you started," she said. "You chose to humiliate me. Now you will face the consequences." The fight erupted instantly. Kayla moved with precision, using every skill she had learned in battles across the galaxy. Blaster fire echoed, energy shields sparked, and the metallic corridors shook from the intensity of their duel. The commander was strong, but Kayla was faster. Years of strategy, planning, and controlled fury fueled her moves. Every strike was calculated, every dodge perfect. She remembered the humiliation, the slap, the anger, and used it to push past fear. Minutes felt like hours. The battle tore through the ship, alarms blaring, warning lights flashing. Kayla knew she could not falter. The rebellion, her fleet, her honor, everything depended on this fight. Finally, she saw the opening, a small gap in the commander's defense, a moment of arrogance. Kala's hand moved almost instinctively. The strike was precise, powerful, and unrelenting. The commander staggered, disbelief flashing across his face. Kayla did not hesitate. She struck again, shattering his defenses, and at last, his skull-dot silence followed. The hum of the ship, the distant alarms, everything paused. Kayla stood over him, breathing heavily, her chest pounding. The man who had humiliated her, who had underestimated her strength and resolve, lay defeated. Outside, Kayla's fleet watched as the flagship faltered. The Empire's forces hesitated, confused and leaderless. The rebellion had won a decisive victory, not just in battle, but in morale, courage, and symbol. Kayla took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. This was more than revenge. This was justice, honor, and the beginning of a new era. The galaxy had witnessed what determination and courage could accomplish. Even against impossible odds, as she exited the flagship, her officers and alien allies surrounded her. Their eyes shone with respect, admiration, and hope. The rebellion was no longer a whisper, it was a roar. Kayla looked to the stars, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. The commander was defeated, but the galaxy was vast, full of unknown dangers and new challenges. She had won a crucial battle, but the war was far from over. And yet, one thing was certain. Kayla, the woman once humiliated in front of everyone, had risen. The galaxy would remember her name. The Empire would fear it. And those who believed in hope, courage, and justice would follow her lead. The flagship lay in ruins, its alarm silenced, its commander defeated. Kayla stepped onto the observation deck, gazing out at the remnants of the battle. The Empire's fleets were scattered, retreating in confusion and fear. For the first time in her life, she allowed herself a moment of calm. Her officers gathered around, exhausted but victorious. Their eyes shone with relief and admiration. The alien allies hovered nearby, their reflective skin glinting under the soft light. Kayla knew they had fought bravely, their trust in her unshaken. "We did it," one of her lieutenants said, voice trembling. "The Empire. They can't stop us now." Kayla shook her head slightly, a small smile forming. "No, this is only the beginning. The Empire is far from defeated, but today we showed them that even the mightiest power has limits. Today we showed that courage, strategy, and unity can overcome fear." She looked to the stars, the endless expanse of the galaxy stretching before her. The hum of distant ships and the soft glow of distant suns reminded her how vast the challenges ahead would be. Every sector had stories of oppression. Every planet had cries for freedom. Kayla understood that the rebellion was no longer about her alone. It was about the galaxy. About hope that the surviving soldiers cheered softly. Their spirits lifted not just by the victory, but by the symbol Kayla had become. She had once been humiliated in front of everyone, slapped by a commander who believed he could break her spirit. Now she had shattered his power and in doing so, inspired countless others. Kayla walked through the damaged corridors of the flagship, taking note of repairs and salvaging usable equipment. Every detail mattered. The Empire would rebuild. They always did, but Kayla had learned from their tactics. She would be ready. Always ready. Her alien allies approached, their voices calm but filled with respect. "Kayla," one said, "you have proven yourself worthy of our alliance. The galaxy will remember this day, and so will those who believe in freedom." Kayla nodded. "Then we must ensure that what we built today lasts. Not for revenge alone, but for justice. For the people who cannot defend themselves. For every soldier who believed in me when the Empire sought to destroy her hope." The first step was securing the sectors they had liberated. Kayla sent teams to repair infrastructure, protect civilians, and establish communication channels to spread the message of rebellion. Each action was a reminder that the fight was not just about war. It was about building a future. She returned to the observation deck, staring at the stars once more. Her thoughts drifted briefly to the Supreme Commander. His arrogance, cruelty, and underestimation of her had been his downfall. But the galaxy was full of challenges yet to come. New leaders, new threats, new enemies. She knew they would test her in ways she could not yet imagine. Kayla's lieutenant approached quietly. "General, the people are asking for your guidance. They want hope, direction, leadership." Kayla turned to him, her expression calm but resolute. then we give it to them. Not because I am fearless, but because we cannot allow fear to rule. Every action, every choice, every battle, let it show that courage and honor matter. That even the strongest empire can fall when people unite. As she spoke, messages arrived from across liberated sectors. Civilians, soldiers, and even former enemies expressed admiration and willingness to join the rebellion. Kayla realized something profound. She had sparked not just a war, but a movement. A movement for justice, hope, and freedom. Her thoughts returned to the personal. She had once been humiliated, shamed, and underestimated. That pain had been real, but it had forged her into the leader she had become. She had turned anger into strategy, humiliation into determination, and doubt into victory. The galaxy would remember Kayla not as the general who had been slapped, but as the general who had shattered the Empire's chains, who had led with courage, wisdom, and unyielding resolve. Looking out at the stars, Kayla whispered, "This is our victory, but not the end. The galaxy is vast, and the fight for freedom continues. And we will be ready." Her officers and allies watched silently, understanding the weight of her words. Together, they would rebuild, defend, and expand the rebellion. Kayla had won the battle, inspired the galaxy, and set the stage for a new era where courage, justice, and hope could triumph over oppression. And somewhere in the distance, the whispers of her name grew louder. Kayla, the woman who had once been humiliated, now a legend. A general who had shattered skulls, broken chains, and lit a fire in the hearts of the oppressed. The galaxy had changed forever, and this was only the beginning.